everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we are back again today because we're going to talk about a freaking Star Trek book, if you can believe it. We have finished up TNG number 61, Diplomatic Implausibility. Now, every time I say the title to this, I want to say this, which is not correct.
Diplomatic immunity.
Because it's not diplomatic immunity, it's diplomatic implausibility. And is that because you have Mr. Worf as the newly appointed, Federation Klingon ambassador? And is it implausible for him to be a diplomat? Is the book a diplomatic implausibility in itself? I don't know. Actually, I do know, because I just finished reading it, and it was a fantastic time. First off, this is, and as far as I know, I can't think of another, at least of the TNG numbered novels, that is like this. It is a Worf-centered novel. Basically, the Enterprise is in it, they drop Worf off, they leave, and he takes over for the rest of the show. And then it also introduces us to the crew of the IKS Gorkon. So now you're also getting this kind of taste of, this whole new, Klingon world that Keith RA DeCandido is bringing you into. So before we get too far into it, let's do what we normally do here. A Klingon warrior must negotiate a fragile peace. Star Trek: The Next Generation Diplomatic Implausibility, number 61 by Keith R.A. DeCandido. Ditto. Either way is fine. This was published in 2001. And let's see. From the back. 200 years ago, the expanding Klingon Empire found a frozen world rich in deposits of the mineral topaline. They named the planet Tad, Klingon for frozen. And they called the people Jekpo, conquered. 4 years ago, the Klingon Empire invaded Cardassia, breaching the Khitomer Accords and causing a break with the Federation. On Tad, depleted Klingon forces were overthrown in a small coup d'etat, and the victorious rebels took advantage of the disruption to appeal for recognition from the Federation. Now, the Klingons have returned to Tad and reestablished their control, but the stubborn rebels insist on Federation recognition. A solution to the diplomatic impasse must be found, a task that falls to the Federation's newest ambassador, which, of course, is Worf. Worf thinks of himself as a fighter, not a negotiator, but the Federation disagrees. Now, for the sake of the Federation and the Empire, a Klingon warrior must weave a fragile peace out of a situation ripe for war. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, right? It doesn't really get too into it, and you know what? It doesn't even really get into what is the, the biggest part of this novel, which is kind of like this whole introduction of this Klingon crew, right? And, of course, I know that it continues on in this series, also by Mr. DeCandido. Maybe I should just start calling him Keith for easier reference. But anyway, the author. So I am looking forward to getting into that series as well. But I just love how they take this little Worf story and then he's turned it into his own new series. Now, let's actually find out a little bit more about the book from Voyages of the Imagination here. So the author of this book, Jeff Ayres, interviewed Keith. And Keith says, or rather he paraphrases for him, Keith met John Ordover when John was at Tor, and Keith worked for Library Journal. They remained friends, and he eventually started doing some freelance work for John. I was the one who picked all the clips for the CD-ROM version of Star Trek Encyclopedia, my big unknown accomplishment in the Star Trek universe. Did you know that? Now you do. He continued, by the time 1999 rolled around, I had then published 4 novels and a bunch of short stories. All of them were media tie-ins for the most part. After I had pretty much established myself, John said, I'd love to write a Star Trek story. I'd love for you to write a Star Trek story, to Keith. So I came up with an incredibly brilliant pitch for the original series. Ordover thought it was really cool and it would make a wonderful novel, so of course he rejected it. Pocket had just gotten with the new scripts for What You Leave Behind, the last DS9 episode, and it went with Worf going off to be the Federation ambassador to the Klingon Empire. John knew Worf was my favorite character, so I suggested I should write Worf's first mission as Federation ambassador. To which I, not being stupid, agreed. He suggested. Boy. And then that's how diplomatic implausibility came about.
Diplomatic community.
Diplomatic implausibility came about. So anyway, just again, before we get into spoiler territory, very fun story. Again, the crew of the Enterprise, they take off early. It is Worf along with the crew of the Gorkon, right? And they are the ones solving this problem. So it's interesting to see kind of the dynamic between Worf, being the Federation ambassador, kind of trying to do things that way versus the Klingon way. And then it's also fun because there's like a little bit of a mystery that they have to figure out as well. So let's talk about some of the side characters that were involved here. I forgot to take notes. Look at this. But that's okay because we do remember. Of course, the main character, honestly, besides Worf in this, is Captain Klag. Now, if you don't remember Captain Klag, he's probably going to pop up in my little slideshow here, and if I see him, I'll make him big. But Captain Klag was in the TNG episode. That's him, right there. There he is. If you'll remember, where Riker went on to a Klingon vessel for a bit, and then a Klingon officer went on to the Enterprise. Incredibly great Klingon episode, and Klag and the whole crew there were awesome. But Klag is now the captain of the Gorkon. He's a hero of the Dominion War. He's also lost an arm in the Dominion War. So he's awesome. They're all just a very fleshed out group of Flingons. Look out for the Flingons, guys. The Klingon characters in this, I love that he took these characters from TNG so that we can kind of see where they ended up, right? Here's another one. Young Tak, right? Worf rescued him from the Cardassian prison camp, right? But now he is on board the Gorkon and has proven himself to be a very good ensign, and then he advances in rank, as Klingons do, to lieutenant in the story there. So, he's there. There is there's the engineer character from the TNG episode where Dr. Crusher is trying to prove that Ferengi's theory about the metaphasic shields and all that. So it's wonderful that all these kind of characters are brought back in, and he writes Klingons just very well. And it's fun to kind of be in that different world for a little bit, right? Which is why I'm looking forward to getting into this. Because this is something completely different. We're not going to talk about that now. So anyway, spoilers. They get on this planet, right? And immediately you can kind of see that the problem is not just that these, people are conquered and want to rebel. And it's also that it got this kind of terrible governor in the situation too, right? Who's not taking care of the situation. So it's up to Worf and Klag kind of to find a way to work through this and find a solution that's good for both the Empire. The Empire does not want to lose face here, basically. They, at this point, after the war, they can't show any sort of weakness, so they need to show that they're in control of the situation and that these rebels aren't going to, overcome their, they've been, they've been in charge of this place for 200 years, right? So they got to show that they're still in charge. So that's kind of what Martok sends Klag and Worf out there to do. But then Worf also has to do the right thing by the Federation as well. And that's where it kind of gets interesting, where there's differences of opinion, but in the end, they kind of work together to solve the problem. And there is a bit of conspiracy going on as well. The Klingons have a longtime enemy, and I don't know if they've ever been pictured in the show. I'll have to look at that later. But the Creel, right? So the Creel, it turns out, do have kind of an inside deal with right now the... Oh gosh. I've forgotten it's a weird name. The Zhegpol, But basically, the original inhabitants of Todd, right? And anyway, these guys I didn't really describe are like gigantic, furry creatures. You can see one of them right there, right? And I thought maybe he was like Borgified, but no, he just shaves. That's how the ritual shaving of their face in certain spots, right? But anyway, they're huge and they're like really incredible fighters too. But they've been again conquered by the Klingons for 200 years and have been, turned into like miners and stuff. But they've had enough of that, right? They're overthrowing. They're now initiating even bigger like bombings and things like that to get things done. And the Klingon solution, of course, is random executions and let's just blast them all from space, right? But Worf has to find a way to kind of get on the inside with these guys, and he does that. He beams down. He's able to meet with them. So we do have a little bit of fun Klingon action, battles on the ground between Worf and his bodyguard, kind of getting in and fighting these guys, and then, earning their trust. And then, of course, the Gorkon in space, fighting against the Creel. And that is, again, I'm really looking forward to more of this because it's just kind of a fun dynamic and it's different. Because I've read so many Star Trek novels, and they are all from the perspective of the Federation, right? Maybe not all. I mean, I've probably read 2 or 3 that maybe are kind of a Klingon focus or maybe a Vulcan or Romulan focus. But other than that, you're looking at everything from the Federation, right? So, very excited that this was the start of this. And I think that's basically what happened, right? And we'll know about that more when we start reading the next book. So, final thoughts on Tooth and Claw. If you're looking for a good Worf story, this is one of the, I think one of the more focused Worf stories that I've ever read, right? I can't think of another, like I said, at least of the numbered novels, and there might be more as we kind of get past this numbered section of TNG, and kind of see what's there. But anyway, the book comes to a satisfying conclusion, of course, with Worf finding a diplomatic implausible solution to the problem, and it's nice to see that by the end too, like him and Klag, who at first Klag is thinking like, man, Worf only got this job because he's in Martok's family, right? He thinks it's all nepotism. But then Worf kind of shows that he knows what he's doing, and then then he sees in Klag like what Klag can really do. And also there's this whole kind of storyline too where Klag, he's lost his arm in the war. His new doctor's like, we can get you a new arm, and he's like, no, I don't want no prosthetic. Only arm I want is going to be the real arm of a warrior. So at the end of the story, he's having his dad's arm grafted onto him, and his dad has just passed away. And there's this whole story there with his dad too, who was an honorable warrior for 30 years, but then spent the last 10 years basically dying in bed, kind of. So I'm excited to see again how that all plays out, I'm a big Klag fan now, right? Big Klag fan, so going to be coming in with some more Klingon stuff here in the next couple videos for sure. And, just looking to see where this new world will take us. Anyway, that's me talking about Star Trek DS9. No, Star Trek TNG. We're talking about Star Trek Diplomatic Immunity. Diplomatic Implausibility. This is number 61, and final notes before we really do wrap it up. We only got 2 more of these TNG numbered novels, and it's a story. It's, what is it, the Maximum Warp series, right? So when we get through this little Klingon adventure we're on, we're going to read the Maximum Warp, which is going to bring to a close the long 5-year span that I think it's been on of me reading and talking about every Star Trek TNG numbered novel, which is what I originally started this whole thing to do, which is crazy. So, anyway, that's me. I gotta go. Heading up to Detroit. Gonna watch a concert. It's gonna be great. As always, my friends, live long and prosper. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good night.